All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Lab, the NFL edition. I am Brian. I'm here with Ian and Matthew Friedman, who you can see on the screen right now. Hope you guys are doing all right. Yeah, so every week we get together at noon and we hop on here and discuss some of the injuries that just came in, possible projection changes, stuff like that. So let's dive right into it, guys. Ian, let's start with, I think, probably the most important game of the week, or at least one of them. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can all look together at the matchups page here. This game, the Raiders and Redskins, we have a couple guys who are either not likely to play or not looking great here. What is the status of guys like Kelly, Jordan Reed? What do you think it's going to do to this Redskins offense?
Yeah, right now, Jordan Reed, they're still calling him a game-time decision, but the word is that he's more doubtful than probable at this point. So definitely, need to be prepared to have another option. But Vernon Davis is looking like the guy there. And then with Rob Kelly also looking out, it's a bit of a unique situation because Chris Thompson's only this 5'7", about 170, 180-pound running back. He's good and everything, but they've said this week that they're not going to pile on 15 carries with him and make him into something he's not. So we should see a good amount of both Thompson and Perrine, their rookie back from Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what are your thoughts on this offense, especially if Reed can't play? We've seen Pryor get so many of the air yards, from Cousins, and the connection really hasn't been there. But it seems like this could be an interesting buy low spot. Just so many targets seem like they might have to go through Pryor and even Jameson Crowder.
Yeah, what's interesting is that even with the downgrade to Reed, we are right in line with the Vegas props in terms of yardage and receptions to Pryor and to Crowder. Vernon Davis has obviously gotten a pretty big bump in our models, so he's popping especially on FanDuel, and he's got a nice matchup there going against the Raiders, who were 23rd in pass DVOA last year against tight ends. Perrine is a guy who's interesting. We're still projecting him for single-digit ownership, but he's going to be the workhorse in a game that's going to be high-scoring. And then Chris Thompson, interesting play on the props. Right now, his receiving props are 3 receptions for 25.5 yards. We are significantly on the over there, but we are definitely on the under when it comes to his props for rushing. His yardage prop is 55.5, which is just outrageous. That's really high for him. We are significantly on the under on that as we are projecting a lot of the action to go to Perrine.
Okay, let's move to another game here. We're going to go to the Tennessee Titans. DeMarco Murray's status and sort of how it affects the offense. Ian, a kick to you again first here.
Yeah, so DeMarco is apparently set to start, but this is still this same hamstring injury that's been limiting him really since training camp. The report that has been coming out, though, is that even with Murray starting, they could still rely on Derrick Henry to kind of be their bell cow. We saw Henry outtouch Murray last week and have basically the best game of his career. So while Murray might be the guy going out there first, it's looking like Henry's going to be the main guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough matchup here, against Seattle. So the question is I think people, if Murray was going to be completely out, Henry may not be a cash game play just because of the matchup, but interesting price. The question is, are either of these even GPP plays anymore? Matt, what are your thoughts?
I don't think so because Henry was priced up because this hamstring injury is something that's been around. So it's not as if Henry is a guy who's incredibly cheap or anything like that. One thing to note also, and then as you mentioned, the matchup's not good. One thing to note, Corey Davis is out, and this is something that we've known for a while, but we should see some extra target volume funneled as a result of that to Rashard Matthews and Eric Decker. Neither one of them has a great matchup. That said, there's some opportunity there in the prop market. We are significantly on the over when it comes to the props.
Okay, let's keep on moving. And we have some, if you want to get in chat and ask some questions, we'll finish the show answering any of those that you guys might have. Not like starter sit or like this guy or this guy, but if you have questions on injuries, lineup construction, stuff like that, we'd be happy to answer for sure. All right, let's move to the New York Giants here, and we'll go to the actual defensive side of the ball in their matchup against the Eagles. Janoris Jenkins and his status. Ian, what's going on with Janoris, and how do you think it potentially affects this game?
Yeah, so Janoris is good to go. He's playing. He missed last week, wasn't practicing a ton this week. So I guess the question now is whether he's healthy enough to really shadow Alshon all over the field. From what we know, though, he's healthy, and just assuming that he's going to see Jeffrey for a decent amount of snaps, this is going to put the Giants in their usual week-to-week defense, which opens up that middle of the field for Zach Ertz. They got crushed by Witten in week 1, Ebron in week 2. So at home, with Jenkins healthy, it's looking like the middle of the field is the play for the Eagles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good question that I had. So I'm glad you answered that. Matt, what are your thoughts? Is this actually a bump up for Ertz just because, Janoris might take out an Alshon Jeffrey that was getting a little buzz as a GPP play, and now Wentz could just keep on targeting Ertz like crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of impossible for us to be any higher on Ertz than we were before. So I think it's just sort of more the same. But I mean, Ertz is going to be a popular play. We've seen what he's done recently. His splits without Jordan Matthews are outrageous. In his last 10 games, he's gotten close to 10 targets per game. So yeah, Ertz is the play. And going back to Jeffrey, Janoris, his presence there, it fits right in line with our projections, and our projections are right in line with the Vegas props.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking on some of our content this past week. Ertz pretty much has the same lines as Travis Kelce. He just hasn't gotten into the end zone. So, and you're getting him at $5,000. So there's a reason he's 25% projected.
Yeah, one quick player to note here is also Darren Sproles, another guy who could attack the middle of the field there. And so we are over for the combined yardage in terms of the props. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If it's good for Ertz, it could also be good for Sproles.
Prop king over here, Matthew. All right, let's keep on moving. Really important injury status because this game could really dictate GPPs. Green Bay Packers, Cobb has been up in the air. Definitely is going to affect pretty much the entire offense. Ian, what's going on with the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, so Cobb is looking pretty doubtful. It's assuming he's out. It's just tough because he had a game last year where he didn't practice all week and ended up playing as well. But assuming Cobb ends up being out, the expectation is that Jordy Nelson would probably slide in and take most of his slot reps. Geronimo Allison is pretty much locked in as the fourth wide receiver on the Packers, so he would kind of slide in, become their fourth option or so. But the big opportunity here, I think, is Nelson in the slot, as well as Martellus at tight end, even Montgomery at running back.
Yeah.
Because, Bengals are just really good at outside corner, Pac-Man Jones and Dre Kirkpatrick. And last year gave up the least amount of DraftKings points per game to outside receivers other than the Broncos. So if there's a spot to attack, it's going to be the middle of the field, and Jordy Nelson could have way more opportunities there than we are used to.
I love that call. Yeah, Jordy and Bennett in the middle of the field. Freeman, what are your thoughts on Cobb now and sort of how you think it's going to distribute? And then I also have a question is Montgomery. He's priced up this week at 6'9". I personally think that's still a little bit of a discount, still too low. People see like a huge price discount and automatically think, okay, he's too expensive now. But sometimes like just because they see a price increase doesn't mean it's enough. So what are your thoughts on some of these Packers guys?
Yeah, so Jordy moving into the slot, he's had success there in the absence of Cobb. He's gotten a bump in terms of the ownership projection in our model. And in terms of his splits without Cobb, last year, over 100 yards and just a touchdown per game. Adams is also, I think, going to see a bump. He averaged 10 targets per game last year without Cobb. And so those two guys are going to be popular. And then Ty Montgomery, he's going to be popular anyway. This helps him even more. We are significantly on the over in terms of our projections for both his receiving yardage and then also his receptions. And then, of course, the rushing yardage too. This is going to be a game in which they are attacking a Bengals defense that has allowed the most rushing attempts per game this year to running backs. So it is a premium spot as a home favorite. Aaron Rodgers, we're a little under in terms of the yardage if you're looking at the props, but where Aaron Rodgers gets his production is in terms of the touchdowns. And so he could still have that while even not throwing for many yards. He could have 4 passing touchdowns in this game. So it is a really great spot. And then, of course, if you wanted to look at the other side of this matchup, you could run it back with AJ Green, who's ridiculously cheap on FanDuel.
Historically cheap. Yeah. He's never been as cheap as he's been this week. So, I mean, really interesting game here on both sides of the ball offensively. Yeah, I think, I love your call here. Devontae Adams, Ty Montgomery, Jordy, all currently projected for 17 to 20% ownership. And Martellus, who actually led all Green Bay Packers pass catchers last week with 11 targets, 5 to 8% ownership. There's your leverage play in this game if you want it.
One quick thing I should say also, if someone wanted to do the onslaught, and then I hate to say this, I'm going to throw up in my mouth as I'm saying this, but if you wanted ridiculously low ownership on the other side, you could go with LaFell, who has a really easy matchup going against Devon House.
Cool. All right, let's keep moving. We'll just touch on a couple things that these guys are projected to play, but just to make sure that everyone knows that. Ian, Patriots guys look to be good to go here.
Yeah, all the Patriots guys are good to go. Only noticeable absence was Eric Rowe, their slot cornerback, but with the Texans' low implied total, unless you're a complete Braxton Miller freak, probably a situation to avoid.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's keep moving here. Miami Dolphins, their guys are good to go as well, Ian?
Yeah, all the Dolphins are good to go. We had some weird DMPs this week from Ajayi, and one beat writer even said there was a hitch in his step at practice. But
yeah, I saw Levitan talking about that. Is that a concern?
He's been battling this knee soreness, his entire career. That's why he fell in the draft in the first place. So it's according to Gase, it was just he was a little bit banged up from the game. So unless we're just kind of getting fooled here, it seems like he's fine. I'm a little more nervous to play him in cash than I was on Monday, but he's still in a great spot.
Yeah, he's one of the only people in the entire history of the NFL to put up 200 plus rushing games in 3 games in the season. So definitely a good spot against the Jets, even though we have seen some line movement on here. What are your thoughts on Ajayi, Friedman, with all sort of the news? We hadn't talked about that since your running back breakdown.
I'm all in. I still love Ajayi, and he's one of the highest projected players in terms of ownership in our models. So we think people are going to be on him. You can never project a blow up spot, but 150 total yards seems very possible for him in this spot going against the Jets.
200 yards is possible.
It's all possible going against the Jets, but it's a potential.
It's not like a likely outcome, but it's in his realm of like possibilities.
Adam Gase has said that they are not anticipating reducing Ajayi's workload, and he said that after the report came out about the hitch in Ajayi's gait. So I'm fine with it.
That's good to know. We've got a couple of questions here. We're going to move towards those. We got about maybe 4 or 5 minutes here. We'll run through some questions. Question from Peter N. I'm not sure what N stands for. He says, Mike Gillislee, Freeman, I didn't hear you talk about Gillislee. What happened? You were raving the other day.
I still love Gillislee. You skipped over me when you talked about the Patriots. I'm all in. Gotcha. And I should say that in terms of our models, we are projecting on the over for the yardage total with Gillislee. We're expecting it to be a very run-heavy game for Gillislee, especially in the second half if the Patriots have a lead, which they are implied to have. So it's a good spot for Gillislee.
And almost 2 touchdown favorite at home against the Houston Texans team that has not proven they can really keep up offensively with any team, let alone the Patriots. So could be a give Gillislee the ball and run out the clock situation. Cool. All right, let's go answering a couple other questions. Ian, I'm going to kick to you on this one. Going to this game that we started out with Oakland and Washington. Question is, do we have any idea of sort of the cornerback matchups with Norman and Breeland? Do you think they're going to play sides, or do you think that Norman might shadow? What are your thoughts here?
So the Redskins have not had Norman shadowing so far this year, but they didn't have him shadow Sammy Watkins or Alshon Jeffrey. So I'd say Jeffrey at least is kind of on Cooper's level, but based on what's happened this year, we're expecting Norman to kind of stick to his left side of the field. Crabtree has lined up there more often so far this year, so We're kind of expecting Cooper to see a little bit more Bashaud Breeland, a little bit less Josh Norman, but both of them will kind of move throughout the game. So tough to say that Cooper's going to get Breeland for the entire game and Crabtree's going to get Norman for the entire game.
Very interesting dynamic here. Cooper projected for less ownership and is the cheaper player in this like just massive potential shootout game. So Cooper, interesting guy. I know that Pete is a fan for sure. All right, let's go to the Detroit. We got some couple questions just about what our thoughts are on this backfield. And I think this is really where a lot of people are struggling is, Pete did a video for premium subscribers, and we're going to put it out tomorrow as well for free. It's just talking about how to build multiple lineups. He says he loves the Lions to Stafford with a bunch of people, especially Tate and Ebron. But the question is the Falcons have been so bad against running backs in particular, especially against running backs that catch passes, which it makes Abdullah and Riddick like both in play, which is a little weird, and people just really aren't sure where to go. Freeman, what are your thoughts on this backfield?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Abdullah is the guy getting the carries, and he is also very competent as a receiver. So if you are bullish on the idea of that offense being able to move up and down the field and do some things, and Abdullah as a potential all-around back, I think Abdullah is probably the guy that you go with. But if you're going to be stacking, and I should say everyone should check out that video by Pete. If you're not subscribing, it's worth subscribing just to watch that video. Riddick is also a guy to throw in there if you are doing multiple GBP entries for tournaments. So I'm fine, but I think Abdullah is probably the guy over Riddick, but I understand Riddick because he is such a good pass catching back, but they just haven't been using him the way that they did in the past.
Yeah, Ian, what are your thoughts on this offense? There's pretty low projections as far as ownership goes for these guys. Like Stafford and Golden Tate was like a combination that won the Millie Maker in week one. And now they're projected, Stafford's probably going to be pretty popular just as far as quarterbacks can be at 9-12%. But Golden Tate pretty low. I think people are on the Ebron train just with his talent and, his more involvement in the offense. But even Kenny Galladay has had a 2-touchdown performance. I mean, it's just a really interesting matchup. Who would you expect to be true font to be on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, man. Like this has a potential for a shootout. I think with the Lions, one big thing to keep in mind too is that Dwayne Washington, their goal line backs out. We'll see if Zach Zenner ends up taking most of those carries. But Abdullah's had at least 17 touches in his last 3 full games. So he's more of a feature back there, I think, than people are giving him credit for. And now he's at home versus the Falcons. He had a tough matchup against Arizona's good run D in week 1, then had to go to New York. So we're looking at a cheap Abdullah with probably his best matchup of the year. So give me Amir.
Oh, yeah, I'm Team Amir as well. Last thing, Freeman, you're the London expert. Were you expecting the Jags just to put up 1 million points and blow out the Ravens here?
No, but I was expecting the over, so I was, happy with that.
Well, thankfully, the Jags are going to hit it just by themselves. So
yeah.
That's fun.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, we're going to end it there. We definitely want to keep these 15, 20 minutes on Sundays because I know that you guys want to go build some lineups. So thanks for joining us. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Matt. Good luck this week, and we'll talk to you next Sunday for week 4.